report is set up into really three sections, over and above the need, quality, and the cost sections. So the first part of the the first part of the process is really looking back. So we will give you the prior year report, and which is 5 years ago, the one that was done 5 years ago, and so you will take a few, time to review that and say, basically, what did we say we were going to do? So again, the structure of the template is look back, tell us what you did here, and then what are we going to do? So you're going to look back 5 years ago and say, what did we say we were going to do? And then you're going to go through the center part of the template and really talk about what have we done. So the need, the quality, the cost section, you're looking at certain data depending on the template, and the whole time you're kind of thinking about how is this program doing in either an academic program or a student support program. And then the third part of the report is really saying, now what are you going to do for the next 5 years? So your intended action plans, do you need resources to be able to do that? Who's going to be responsible for it? So again, thinking about moving forward, how are we going to do what we need to do? So that in 5 years from now, that's the part you're going to look at. It's all set up.
Right, so stand in front of the presence arm.
There you are. Now you'll be on
Perfect. So that's the thought process behind working the program review. As Karen kind of talked about too, there are certain things that we don't dictate, that ICCB really does dictate to us. They don't want, you pulling in web pages and all sorts of data. Be concise in your responses. Don't copy in data, don't copy in tables. It's taking the data that you want to and really verbalizing what you've been looking at. Some little small tables or something, okay, but don't be bringing into these cells a huge amount of data. So also as mentioned, there's hints that have already been placed out there, and they do say, please remove these bracketed comments. And I just always have to say, please remove them, because not always do they get removed. And so they're just hints for you to answer that question. And it's just a guideline. It's not telling you what to say. And there really cannot be any blank responses. So if something you don't feel is relevant to you, you may be able to use a not applicable, but there's really very few. I think there's a way, the question may be asked, but if you really think about it in your area, so it may sound like and I think we kind of covered that with you, Shelley, when we went through yours. There were questions and you said, well, that's not really relevant to me. But if we really think about the question, again, in your aspects of your services, then you can make it relevant to you. And also, as we mentioned, so some of those, so if it's not a bracketed comment, there's a comment in there that we've added, so maybe an institutional answer. And so, you can keep those. And so typically in those areas, and this is really more in the academic program, it will say, like, at an institutional level, we do this kind of training for our faculty. And then usually above it, it would say, at a department level. So we won't answer that. That's really what the department chair will be answering that. So, Chris, do you want to do this? No? Yes? Okay. So this is the summary of each of the templates. And so this is the CTE, and this is kind of the skeleton. I'm not going to go through it. I kind of talked about these 3 levels. So kind of the review analysis, the data analysis for the current year, and then the results. What are you coming out of this with? And so that's the structure of the CTE. Similarly, in academic discipline, which nobody's here for academic discipline, those are the courses within arts and science. Similar to look at the review summary for last year. What did we do these 5 years and what do we plan on doing? Cross-disciplinary also is courses. This year we're going to be doing the math DevEd. Same kind of structure. And then for UCAN, the Student and Academic Support Services, and sorry, you shared it too, sorry. So again, it's the review from the previous report, review of your objectives, the center part where you're talking about the need, the cost effectiveness, and the quality, and then the final results. So we kind of want to go through the supporting documents. Bill or Ken, is there something specific you really are looking to get out of this presentation today? We want to kind of be able to drill it towards you. This
is like my 4th or 5th one. So
okay, you're exactly right. So and we appreciate you coming here and you're at the rules haven't changed. So, do fine, thank you. And Ken, is there anything, I mean, I know you've done these too, so.
Only attended these sessions.
There's no attendance necessary.
Oh, we were told there was. Yeah.
Oh, well, I should zip my mouth, I'm sorry. It's not from us, we don't require it.
Well, I'm glad to be here, though.
Okay, so we may say something that's brand new. And again, I'm not speaking for Pamela to you, so. But we do want to kind of be able to give you anything if you have any questions. We want to direct it that way. Because these are all the reports. Do you want to at least drive? And do you want to talk?
For sure, I can.
Sure, it's up to you. If you'd like to go through some of these. You just won't be on video. Right, Laura?
Pardon me?
If he's sitting at the desk, he won't be on video.
He is not, no.
It's
He's
okay.
stand up, stand next to the screen. Or I can turn the camera to.
No, I think
No, it's fine.
It's okay. So we're going to go through a CTE template. So Bill, of course, you're going to this.
Yeah, I am. So we are going to, this is a template that has been provided already as a file that was sent. So all the templates are going to look for CTE, they look familiar in this way that the program title is already given to you, whether it's a degree or a certificate. So the first page are like filled up already. And then the main thing for the first part, they are just common questions like what are the objectives of the program? Each program definitely has an objective. And then how do you achieve the objectives, or how does the objective of the program fill into the bigger objective of the institution? So those are some of the things that you should consider while filling it up, but they are mostly straightforward, if I can put it like that. As well, some of these things are going to be team efforts. So who are going to be it's keeping part.
No, I think it's
You have to get it out, edit mode.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so some of the questions that are going to be asked are also how many people helped you, or the faculty that are involved in this process while you are filling this out. But one thing, for example, that is asked, as we talked about, is mostly about looking backwards, what you said 5 years ago, and you are looking at, okay, we were supposed to do this, so how did we actually do this within these 5 years? But something, for example, for this program, the DMS, you look back at the review that you did 5 years ago. Oh, that's not here. But for example, for this program in 2018, it was said that the program was supposed to be completed with minor improvements based on different things that were discussed at that time. So it's looking back, maybe even reading back, because while preparing this, I read some of those stuff that were written there. So you look at how the program was doing then and what are the things that we said we are going to do. And then
just a correction, to be continued with minor improvements.
thank you very much, to be continued with minor improvements. So going inside into our 3 indicators, our first indicator will be the need of the program. So for the need of the program, something that we are using or something that our department uses is Lightcast. We use Lightcast.
It seems like none of the PDFs opened. They will be in download if you want. Something. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the demand data that has been taken from Lightcast. So for example, how you can look at it, you come to the department, or in this case, this was the department we were looking for, and you look at the number of jobs in 2020, in 2021. So the question is, what is the labor market demand for the program? So you can look at those jobs at that time and looking at this year or the upcoming year, how did the number of jobs increase for this program? Did the demand of the jobs increase or reduce? You can actually use those numbers, as you can look at the percentages as well. Is there an increase? Is there a slight change in those? Some departments might use others' websites, so you're also welcome to say, hey, this is the website that we use, and this is what we realize, and the change in the fluctuations with the demand of the program. And then there are going to be follow-up questions following still the information about the demand. But then you are going to realize that, or we are going to realize as we move forward, that the last question after each of these sections, the last question is always making about us thinking about the previous answers, if I can say that. So it's about, okay, this is how, for example, did the review of the program need in actions or modifications? So when we look at the needs, when we look at the demand for our population, because for Lightcast, for example, we look at the Chicago metropolitan area. So looking at this area, do we need to adjust some things in the program? Do we need to see how we can put ourselves more to be in a more desirable state, maybe, or to put our students more in a better position? So those are the things to look at. The second part will be cost effectiveness. When I think about cost effectiveness, I'm usually trying to look at, I'm thinking about money, definitely. The money that is put out, the money that is coming in. And you look at it, and we are going to look at it at the level of the institution, and as well as the level of the individual program. And to answer this thing is by subject, by department, and we give you the number of credit hours, the revenue from the program, the cost of the program, the effect that it has, the effect that the program has on the institution, your square footage, the adjusted cost, and the adjusted RCR. But then all of these things are just suggestions, or we call it consideration, some things that you need to consider. But we are not saying this is absolutely what you have to use. But these are just some things, or you can think about it, you can fill it out, and if you go through the sample that has been given to you, or through the form, you are going to see that there are even blank spaces. We have put some statements that we have said, you can fill in the blank if you think that this is the sample that I want to use for it. Or you can definitely look at the side that interests you the most about it. But it does not mean because this is what we gave you that you must just fill it as it is and just send it back. If you have additional comments, feel free to add some of those comments. And for example, for the DMS, something that I realized, for example, the RCR for the department could go to 140, but the average of the institution is 81. So some of those things that you can consider, what is it, many labs, what is that are increasing our RCM. So what are those factors that really make that change? So just some thoughts about that really make you dive into the process, and this can even be some conversations to have with faculty members or some colleagues as well. And then the last part of this section, did the review of program costs result in any actions? Maybe some classes might be cut off, I don't know. But how does this review, or how does you realizing the cost of the programs, what are the decisions that come out of those things? Or what are the realizations that you come to? So those are some of the things that you look at. And then the quality of the program. As soon as somebody tells me what happens in 2020, I'm just thinking about COVID. Maybe your program was affected in a way. Maybe now you do some more online classes. So how are your classes in your program? How were they changed in the last thing? Yeah, we're also going to talk about grants. Are there some programs that are really funded by some grants? And if the grant comes to an end, some of the questions are going to be asking you, what are your funding, what are the funding opportunities that you are seeing, or how is this program going to be affected by that change? So just thinking about that, what are some of the innovations that you think that you have added to the program? Are there any dual credit courses in the program? You might have some data even about the students, how many students are in those classes to make the review more consistent or more fruitful, more interesting. And lastly, still under the quality of the program, one of the questions will be, did the review of the program result in any actions? Something that is really difficult, I would say, but interesting to consider is that this is for FY22. So at this point in time, you should be kind of implementing some of those changes, or looking at, okay, that was a year ago, but we are looking at we should be looking at it from another perspective. So it's like us looking at this, but from a year back, or having that backwards perspective, or seeing the direction where we are going to, but we didn't have that direction yet. So at some point later backwards, if that makes sense. I hope it does. And then the last part, which for me is really the most interesting part, but it's just the addition of all what you have already discussed, of all what you have already shared. And it makes us think of the program really compared to at the institution level, and even compared to the community already. We look at how we are helping out the community, or how we are representative of what's happening in the community. Excuse me, please. And just a heads up, we are going to be receiving new data, especially from at the institutional level, if I'm correct. So, for example, for this program, these are the number of students that are enrolled, and we do have the disaggregate information for this. So for the program, for example, for that program, So for example, for that program, we are going to say this is the enrollment for FY22. This is going to be this completion, I think. So yeah,
Enrollment across the 5 terms,
is this
5
enrollment?
fiscal years.
Yeah. So we are going to see how. Yeah. So this is so for FY22, for example, you'll see the number and the percentages of the enrollment by the race and by gender. And then the questions are just the questions is for you to compare. So already we have the percentages. We have given you the percentages. We have given you the percentages of at the institutional level. We have given also the percentages at the community level for this. You can keep them there, and then you just add. This is what we realize at the program level. For example, is this representative? For example, for the program, based on the program, we are going to see that about 90% on average, 90% of the enrollment is female. Then you are going to see it really doesn't represent even the institution, because at the institution we are kind of in the 50-50, so around there. Neither does it represent the community, because if you go into the community, you are going to see that that is not the range. So just looking at it in that perspective as well, and coming out with those numbers of mostly percentages and seeing how they compare with each other, that's the way I would suggest approaching the last part. And then, were there any gaps? Were there any gaps? And that is something you realize in the past. What are you doing at your level to improve those gaps or to reduce those gaps? Are you diverting some marketing strategies, for example? Are you going into some other classes, looking at some other stuff? So what are the things you are doing at your level to make it more representative or more inclusive to look at the institution or the community in general? And then coming back at the review, that in 5 years you'll definitely be looking into it again. What are some of the things that you think need to be improved? Or has the program been turned into inactive? For example, some have it has happened to some or discontinued. So yeah, you have the whole perspective, the demand of the program for the community around. You have how you are doing, and you are given steps of what you should be doing, or you have thought about what you can be doing more, and you look at that and you fill it out. One thing is usually who is going to be responsible for that change or some of the things that you have included. You can put your name, but the position is the most important. If it's a team effort, you can have your 2 names and your 2 positions there. But it's really something, it's not, oh, we were forced to do it. Yeah, it's a requirement and we need to do it. But it's something, if we look at it, it's actually looking at how we can improve ourselves, or how we can make the programs, we can make our students more successful if we can look at it that way. Any questions or anything you'd like to add?
I know with my report, there was no prior data, correct? So
I think for your career services you should, but for vet, no. And I think those were the 2 that you got.
no, I only get veterans.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, okay. So yes, there was no prior. So you're doing the baseline.
Okay, so it should be easier.
Yeah.
Is it possible to show, I know this is for academic programs, for an example of the service?
Yeah, so did you have the
Yeah.
template for this?
I think we have more templates, so we'll be
have
going,
them
it's
all.
not the only template, we'll be going
It
over.
looks different than
Yeah.
the non-academic.
So I think we can go over looking at the audience here. I think next we can go through the academic support.
Sure, that's what we're gonna.
We have covered CTE.
It should be a Word document, right?
Yeah, looking downloads, maybe I didn't get it open. Yeah, this is one. Fourth from the top. So just as a quick scroll, we can see that there is a prior, but in your case, there is no prior also. But for some things, okay, oh, that, I didn't bring any other one, yes, sorry. I only brought this one. So these questions, you know, also with you, Ken, and again, as we sat and we talked with Shelley about some of these questions, you know, we don't really want to get hung up on, you know, if it's academic or student support. I think we just really want you to take the time to really think about it as a service. And so answer the questions. Isn't that how you felt best, Shelley? That, you know, just thinking about how are we doing this with our students. And so, yeah, so the objectives, certainly you'll fill out the objectives, but when it comes to the question regarding the previous report, just say this is the first ICCB report that for this. But it still covers the same. So we also did put a lot of hints in here because there's so many different ways that it could be coming from. The CTE, you know, we've really been able to zero in on that. But same thing, the need, the cost, we don't really have your cost. We do have the academic because we use instructional transactions. And then quality, you know, again, that is pretty much where you can add your thoughts. What was 3.8? I'm sorry. And we really didn't give any disaggregate data, you know, because though it said, you know, I think I got just put in here because it said disaggregate data, but anything that you really feel you want and need for this, we'll be able to pull that data.
Just make a research request.
Sure, yes, please.
I just want to mention some of the, this is so different from the academic side of it because this is a service. So it could be a service area or a department itself. So when it comes to the cost, we don't really do the cost analysis for non-academic areas as part of the cost comparisons. So we don't have that. But typically departments have their own budget. So you have that information from the budget, unlike the academic areas where they don't have budget by program. You go by the department or by program?
By department.
By department. So that's why we have this cost analysis done by department rather than individual program, because we don't have that data. We don't do that revenue cost analysis by program. Same is the case with support services. We don't really have that data. It's part of the budgeting process. So you will have that information already. You can take it from your budgeting documents.
So that's great. To know that. But how deeper should we go? Like we were talking about, oh, it should be itemized, should we be looking at the proctoring, you know, software for the online learning, that's what we're looking at. Even like, is it for, you know, personnel salaries, like what kind of cost should it be?
I would say what supports your argument. So rather than starting with the data, you go with start with the argument, then go find the, do you have the supporting data for it? So then if you don't have the supporting data, then you cannot make that argument. So I would say, based on that argument, you may be able to use that data. And certainly we can help with that if there is any related data you need. For example, in your case, number of online courses or number of online programs. And I believe Humberto would be able to help with the Blackboard side of it. So data from there. So that would go into the cost.
Right. Right, so what we were discussing was like, well, now we need the support staff, like what's the extent of the cost, right? The
Mhm.
student side, because for us, it's the staff side, it's a combination.
Yeah, I think that's part of the budget again. So the what the FTE for your area. So that'd be a good way to represent that. And if you're planning for any changes to that, certainly that goes in there. So right. So as part of your future plans, what is going to that? And in your case, this is completely new, so we may have to, we can certainly have more discussions because this is being done the first time. So certainly we can help with your thought process on this. So, yeah.
And certainly, Ken, we were not sure and we did not dig that deep in if vet services have been covered in previous reports. So, I just didn't dig deeper into that, so we were kind of just saying it's a waste.
In the case of veteran services, there is a question, is this a mandated service? Yes, it is, right? So there goes. So a lot of other things probably then become irrelevant, some other questions, because it is mandated. So the need is already explained because it's mandated. Of course, you can support that with the veterans. So if you need how many veteran students we have, or veteran staff or employees we have, those kind of data certainly we should be able to provide them. So that can support.
Okay. We have the same document that Jordy sent out the other day.
Oh yeah, that I believe that helps a lot. Yeah, the survey you have been.
Yeah.
Yes, that helps a lot. I think a lot of that information is already there, so you can pick from there and refer to that too.
Okay.
And then he's just coming to the bottom here, so similarly, just a summary of the report once you get through the whole. I think that kind of covers those specifics. Are there other questions?
We have another 5 minutes, so if there are any additional questions, I don't think we will go into the other templates since we don't have any representation from academic discipline or cross discipline. It's basically math. So certainly we can cover that at a different time or the next workshop.
And Bill, I'm sure you were pleased that we pulled those 4 out of there.
Yeah, so emergency management degree cert is out because last time we did it, first thing we're closing it.
Correct.
And we haven't had students in there in about 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
Public safety dispatcher never even ran.
Is that EMP?
No, EMP is emergency management.
Okay, okay.
The DIS, I think it was, public safety dispatcher, that one never ran, so there's nothing really to evaluate on that one.
And actually, I mean, because it was still on the list was because there were still counts in there somewhere along the line. So, but.
So that would be, for those, so the only ones we've read would be the EMS certificate and then all the fire classes.
Okay.
Certain degree.
And so let me also just clarify, if a student had it as an active program, that's what we were really kind of.
No, I understand that, yeah.
And so they may have had an active program, but never really did.
Yes.
So, that's the best we can do at count.
But I think right now, how students are set in those, it just doesn't make sense because I know the numbers are all off in health careers. It's all off from what we know it is.
Yeah. We only report the data, right? As much as we try to make sure it gets to be clean data. Okay, well, we appreciate all your time. I hope that this was helpful. Also, we are available at any time for any questions. Certainly when you sit down and start to think about it, that we do that time that you say, now I have a question. God understood, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Bernie, on the quality aspect of the application, remember how in the past they would tell you what group they are, like new, return, and transfer, like when you click it in the Tableau. When I download the spreadsheet, I can see the spreadsheet, I see the organization, so what kind of work. Does that make sense? On Tableau?
Yeah.
You mean funnel?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, the funnel has that.
Because I can't access it. Man, when I click on it to download the spreadsheet, it doesn't come up. That's why you guys showed up, huh?
Yeah, right. And, assessment too. I was interested
Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about here, so.
in that.
So you're saying you don't see
The actual applicants in there.
in the actual list.
Yeah,
You don't see these.
yes, I come up.
So.
Or maybe I'm blind.
It doesn't.
The welcome to Tableau with information.
I don't know if that's ended.
Oh, okay. Hey, Mary,
Yes.
quick question, from the,
Excuse me.
do you guys have this on here? So
Yeah.
evaluator, I mean, obviously, you have.
Sure, yeah.
Should we explain?
Why do you this?
Well,
Yeah, I was like, Sarah's learning.
I have a list of all of the of everything that has been reviewed the last 20 years.
Should say review, not even. Yes.
So, but, sometimes.
Okay. You go there.
Okay. Make it until tomorrow, I mean, that's no rush. Whenever you have time.
It should be there, but I haven't
I can
been.
imagine.
The 332, those who are not enrolled, something like that, possibly not all. No,
Because I can't see any of it. Anything. I don't see anything.
you don't see any list at all.
It comes up blank.
Yes, right.
That's strange. I never, I haven't looked at it recently, so I just.
Do you want?
Or if you want to do like a Zoom call, I can show my screen with you, then you can see what I see. All in there. Maybe I'm not doing it correctly.
No, I like this.
Okay, let me first check if
Okay.
everything's fine. If not, I will change the solution.
Okay, okay.
Able to see that,
Okay.
screen can see that, then, yeah, you can have it or
Yeah.
how you.
It's all done.
Okay, that'll work, that'll work.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I think right now it's just more, and because it's so decentralized, yeah, it's not like. And then there's all the student support, the EPSC, you look at the kind of instructions, it's not just one student, that's true, and once I have a good class, pool. What are the objectives, right?
Sure.
Ours, I don't know, but that's really more from staff. Right, so, not a big, it's okay. Hey, virtual meeting.
Yeah, really fine.
Next thing you know, it's.
After I'm done from jail, then it'll become my
Is there any correlation between, for example, what math would be 49 and what they're doing for their regular staff? Will they use the
Yes,
same stuff?
actually, they're referring to the, yes, of course. When it comes to the quality aspects, they should be referring to
Their own,
Yeah,
as a
yes,
report. So will the deadlines overlap so that they can literally use the same report and not have to read two?
No, it's, they can pick up the data from their already, whatever assessments they have done in the past 5 years, so they can bring up data from there, so.
So they can just pull that. Okay,
It
good.
really is ending on June 30th, 2022, that this is.
It's looking back, so.
The hard things always.
Yeah, Beth is going to do that, so she knows, yeah, what's going on. So I'm pretty sure you should be able to do this.
Okay, good. I was just thinking, just to make it easy.